The first night the police were called, a single, unmistakable sound cut through the quiet of a council house in Enfield. A child's voice, shrill and angry, shouted the word poltergeist as a dresser slammed against the wall on its own. The police officer on scene, seasoned and skeptical, later recalled that the dresser moved a full 15 centimeters, then slammed back down with a force that rattled the plaster. Witnesses reported that the young girl, 12-year-old Janet, was lifted off the floor, her hair whipping in an invisible wind, before being dropped as if a hand had released her. The incident was captured on a portable tape recorder, the static crackle punctuated by the unmistakable thud of furniture striking the ceiling. Even decades later, the audio remains, a raw, unedited slice of chaos that refuses to be dismissed as trickery. It is the kind of moment that haunts investigators, a single thread of evidence that suggests something beyond ordinary explanation, and it forces anyone who hears it to ask, what truly happened in that flat, and why does the evidence still feel so alive? Set against the cramped rows of the Angel Road Council estate in North London, the Enfield case unfolded in the early autumn of 1977. The Hodgson family, George, a labourer, Margaret, a part-time office clerk, and their 4 children had moved into number 5, a modest 2-bedroom flat, seeking a fresh start after years of hardship. Within weeks, the youngest, 12-year-old Janet, began complaining of strange noises, cold spots, and an unseen presence that seemed to linger at the foot of her bed. Neighbors whispered of earlier reports of odd happenings in the building, but nothing comparable. By November, the disturbances escalated. Cupboards flung open, lights flickered, and a disembodied voice repeatedly shouted poltergeist over the telephone. Local police, initially dismissive, were drawn in after reports of a heavy object being hurled across the hallway, striking a wall with a sound that echoed through the narrow corridor. The media latched onto the story, sending crews to document each new occurrence. The timing, just before a national election, added a layer of public intrigue, while the setting, a modest, working-class flat, made the phenomenon feel disturbingly close to home. It was here, in this ordinary space, that the mystery began to take root. The investigation quickly moved beyond curiosity into a systematic collection of evidence. Parapsychologists Maurice Grosse and Guy Lyon Willie arrived in December, bringing tape recorders, EMF meters, and a notebook full of questions. Over the next 6 months, they logged more than 200 separate incidents. Doors slammed, photographs developed with strange circular blurs, and a series of voice recordings captured an unmistakable male tone shouting, "You're going to die," while a chair toppled in the background. Police files confirm that on one occasion, a heavy wardrobe was found displaced by over 30 centimeters, its wooden frame dented as if struck by an unseen force. Medical examinations of the children revealed no signs of physical trauma, yet the girls reported feeling a cold, oppressive presence that left them trembling for minutes after each event. The Department of Scientific and Industrial Research, DSIR, sent a team to evaluate the audio recordings, noting that the frequency patterns did not match any known mechanical source. Photographs taken in the hallway show a faint, translucent silhouette near the door frame, though experts dispute its authenticity. All these data points, audio, visual, physical, coalesce into a body of evidence that refuses easy dismissal, anchoring the Enfield case firmly in the realm of documented, albeit baffling, phenomena. The first detail that refuses to fit neatly into any conventional explanation is the precise timing of the voice recordings. On 3 separate evenings, the tape captured a male voice uttering a single word, poltergeist. Exactly at the moment, a lamp flickered and a nearby bookshelf collapsed. Independent analysis by a radio engineer showed that the recordings contained no overlapping background noise that could mask a human speaker. The voice was clear, resonant, and recorded at a consistent distance from the microphone. Yet, when investigators replayed the audio in the same room under controlled conditions, no one could replicate the sudden surge of electromagnetic interference that corresponded with the voice. Moreover, the voice seemed to arise from a direction opposite the known location of the children. as indicated by the stereo panning on the tape. The pattern repeated with a reliability that suggested intentionality rather than random chance. It was as if an unseen entity was orchestrating a synchronized display of sound, light, and movement, each element arriving in perfect concert with the next. This coordination, observed by multiple witnesses, stands as the first thread that unravels the notion of simple mischief or hoax. The investigation took an even more unsettling turn when a police officer, Sergeant John Haynes, reported that a heavy wooden chair, anchored to the floor by a bolt, lifted off its base and rotated a full 90 degrees before crashing back down, all while a recording device registered an abrupt spike in ambient magnetic fields. What made this event counterintuitive was that the spike occurred precisely as the children were asleep, ruling out any conscious interference. Moreover, the magnetic anomaly persisted for several minutes after the chair settled, subtly affecting nearby appliances. A television flickered between channels without a remote, and a kitchen kettle began to boil despite being unplugged. Laboratory analysis of the electromagnetic data showed frequencies that did not align with known electrical surges or equipment malfunction. The fact that the phenomenon manifested in a location that should have been inert, an empty bedroom, suggested a source external to the human participants. This detail forced investigators to reconsider the possibility that the activity was not merely a prank orchestrated by the children, but perhaps an autonomous force capable of influencing both physical objects and electromagnetic energy. The decisive moment arrived when a local television crew set up a night vision camera in the hallway, intending to capture any residual movement after the children had gone to sleep. As the camera rolled, the feed suddenly filled with a dense, swirling fog that seemed to emanate from the very walls, obscuring the corridor. Within seconds, the fog coalesced into a vague, humanoid shape that hovered near the doorway, its outline flickering like a poorly tuned television screen. The crew, unable to see beyond the static, reported an overwhelming feeling of dread, and the equipment began to malfunction, recording a series of harsh, guttural noises that matched the previously documented male voice. When playback was examined, the visual distortion could not be attributed to lens flare or lighting error. The pattern of movement was too coordinated, too purposeful. Even the director, a seasoned skeptic, admitted that the footage defied any known technical explanation. This incident shattered the remaining veneer of rationality, leaving investigators to confront the possibility that the poltergeist was not merely a series of isolated tricks, but a cohesive, sentient phenomenon capable of manifesting both visually and audibly. If we take the accumulated evidence at face value, the implications stretch beyond a single haunted house and touch upon the very nature of reality as understood by modern science. The simultaneous occurrence of unexplained electromagnetic spikes, audible voice phenomena, and visual manifestations suggests an interaction with an energy field that is not accounted for in conventional physics. Some researchers have posited that the events could represent a localized disturbance in the zero-point field, a quantum vacuum that, under certain conditions, might become susceptible to macroscopic expression. This hypothesis, however, remains speculative, lacking reproducible data and hinging on a single, isolated case. The official report from the Department of Scientific and Industrial Research ultimately classified the Enfield occurrences as unexplained, but likely psychosomatic, a conclusion that sidesteps the hard data in favor of a more palatable explanation. Yet, the precise synchronization of physical, acoustic, and electromagnetic anomalies resists the notion of mere suggestion or mass hysteria. It forces us to contemplate whether our instruments are simply insufficient, or whether an unknown agency can temporarily breach the veil that separates the seen from the unseen. In either scenario, the case threatens to rewrite the boundary between the paranormal and the empirically observable. Parapsychologists Gross and Lyon Willie have long defended the authenticity of the Enfield recordings, insisting that the consistency of the voice, the timing of the electromagnetic spikes, and the eyewitness accounts cannot be chalked up to coincidence. In contrast, skeptical investigator Joe Nickel argues that the children, particularly Janet, displayed classic signs of suggestibility, and that many of the phenomena could be reproduced with simple stagecraft. Dr. Richard Weissman, a psychologist specializing in the study of belief, points out that the social environment, media frenzy, police attention, and the children's own desire for attention created a feedback loop that amplified ordinary events into something extraordinary. Even within the police force, Officer Haynes, who witnessed the chairlift, later wrote that he could not reconcile the event with his training, describing it as one of the most inexplicable incidents of my career. The Department of Scientific and Industrial Research's final assessment remains ambiguous, noting that while some data points are compelling, the lack of a reproducible mechanism leaves the case open. These divergent voices, each grounded in their own discipline, weave a tapestry of conviction and doubt that continues to fuel debate. The Enfield episode left scars that are invisible to the eye, but deeply felt by those who lived through it. Janet, once a lively teenager, retreated into herself, her laughter quieted, her school performance slipping as the weight of the unseen presence grew heavier. Her parents, George and Margaret, found their marriage strained under constant nighttime alarms and the relentless scrutiny of the press. George, a man of practical hands, began to doubt his own perception, fearing that any sudden movement might herald another episode. Margaret, whose faith in the ordinary was shattered, turned to prayer and later to counseling, seeking a foothold in a reality that seemed to shift beneath her feet. The investigators, too, carried the burden of doubt. Gross reported sleepless nights haunted by the same voice recordings, while Lion Willie confessed that the case haunted his mind long after the house was sealed. Even the police officers who responded felt a lingering unease, recalling the cold spot that seemed to linger in the hallway long after the events ceased. The human cost, measured not in headlines, but in broken trust, lingering anxiety, and altered lives, reminds us that behind every mystery lies a fragile tapestry of ordinary people forever changed. As the final tape spins to silence, the room in the Enfield flat sits empty, its walls holding only the echo of questions that never found answers. The recorded voice still whispers through the static, the electromagnetic traces linger in forgotten notebooks, and the faint impression of a shape flickers at the edge of memory. We are left with a single, unsettling observation: that reality, for all its measured certainty, can harbor pockets where the known and the unknowable intersect, and that those pockets may never be fully illuminated. The case does not resolve into a tidy conclusion, nor does it offer comfort. It simply stands as a reminder that some doors, once opened, leave a chill that seeps into the world beyond, persisting long after the lights are turned off. In that lingering chill, we hear the quiet truth that some mysteries are meant to remain, not because we cannot solve them, but because they exist beyond the reach of our current understanding. Perhaps the unanswered echoes are a testament to the limits of human perception, urging us to listen more closely to the silence that follows.